Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company, a nationally ranked community-focused bank with over 30 locations throughout Virginia, Northeast Tennessee, and North Carolina. Who you choose to bank with can make all the difference. Visit firstbank.com to learn more.
What's up, Hokie Nation, and welcome into episode 408 of the Tech Sideline podcast. It's time to talk some more basketball. Men's basketball continues to win, and the women continue to stay on the bubble. All that and much more coming up on episode 408 of the Tech Sideline podcast, which starts right now. We're recording on Wednesday, February 12th, 2025 from our high-tech studio in the Virginia Tech Corporate Research Center. Remember to like, subscribe, and refer the show to a friend. It's time to introduce everybody. As always, I'm your host, Carter Hill, on the basketball side of things. To my right is our lead analyst and columnist, Chris Coleman. Across the way is our managing editor, David Cunningham. Behind the scenes producing is our director of media, entering his Jordan era today. Happy birthday, Mr. Nick Brown. So thank you for doing it as always, and we appreciate you tuning in. Guys, we survived the snow and the ice. I know Gio was making fun of me this morning. He's like, you got to go out and shovel the ice off your car like you guys are from Virginia and we're from New York and everything. But we survived. 3-4 inches of snow and a little bit icy, but here we are talking some basketball.
Yeah, I walked to the gym yesterday. It was fine.
Did you really?
I did.
I
did.
You survived?
Yeah. I just sat inside all day yesterday, and the worst part was getting all the ice off my car. But once I did that, it'll be cool now.
We made it work. Busy day at Tech Sideline. We got this, Jaden Shoot, Triumph Spotlight, a couple other things as well. So should be, Pete Demore podcast as well. Should be a fun day. So, all right, let's talk about the men's side of things. I want to start with them because, again, it feels like the way they're playing recently, you're building all sorts of positive momentum. You go on the road this weekend, you play Notre Dame, and to me, it was the ultimate find a way to win game. You're now 6-7 in the ACC. You knock off the Irish 65-63, and again, Tech just continues to play good basketball.
Yeah, I had a family thing on Saturday, so I didn't get to watch the game, but I was listening to it on the radio as I was driving to my mom's house, and the way that game started, Tech got up 2-0, alley-oop dunk. You're like, okay, nice start, but then just like that, they miss. They can't score. Well, they score 4 points in the first 10 minutes of the game.
I think it was
like
18-4.
It is 18-4.
18-4, and you're like, well, this isn't going to go well. But yeah, to their credit, that they dug in and they found a way to win, and you know that they did something similar earlier in the year when they beat NC State when they were down by double digits and rallied to win that game. And now that rally was a little bit later, but they just kept steadily chipping away at it in the second half. And so I think if nothing else, this group has shown a lot of resiliency this year. They are getting better. They've won 3 out of 4. Their only loss in that span was to SMU, who's a very good team and might make the NCAA tournament. And even that game was a game where the Hokies led quite a bit of that game, that they could conceivably have won that one. So yeah, I think definite positive upward trends. If you can win this game on Saturday, that would be 4 of 5. It would be a sweep over UVA. And then you've got games against Boston College and Miami right after that, so which are highly winnable. So they've got some momentum, so let's keep it going.
Yeah, they've had some late game comebacks this year against some multiple teams. Miami, where they needed that Ben Hammond loop around pass to Elijah Poteet for the and one. NC State basically let Virginia Tech hang around and should have won that game, and then the Hokies stormed back and were able to take it in the closing seconds. But this one felt different, in my opinion, because Virginia Tech, it wasn't like Tech kind of hung around. It was like Virginia Tech was, in my opinion, the better team in the second half. Marcus Burton, who is one of the best guards in the ACC, he averages over 20 points a game. He was like 5 of 7 in the first half for like 16 or 17 points. In the second half, Virginia Tech held them to like 4 of 12. Tech ramped up its defense on him in the second half and really limited him. And as a result, I think he only had like 5 points overall in the second half.
And I think when you take 12 shot attempts in one half or thereabouts.
Yeah.
That's too many. That shows the offense itself is not working.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. No doubt.
So that means the Hokies were playing, much better team defense in the second half.
Yeah, I was gonna find the actual numbers because Burton was really good in that first half. He finished 8 of 18 with 23 points, but almost all of that, I think 17 of that came in the first half. In the second half, Marcus Burton was 3 of 11 for 9 points, and a lot of that came at the beginning. He did not score in the final 4.5 minutes of the game. Notre Dame didn't have a field goal really over that stretch. Virginia Tech's defense won the Hokies this game. I thought they lacked connectivity on that end early. I thought they, on the offensive end, they were playing too much. Well, I thought they were taking too many threes, where they shot such a poor percentage from behind the arc, and I thought their offensive struggles were kind of bleeding over to defense a little bit. Once they were going inside, they were having success. Notre Dame has 1 or 2 bigs, but not much depth there. And once Virginia Tech started going inside to Elijah Poteet, to Toby Lawal, when they got him going in the second half, Tech started to really, really find success. Now, Tech eventually knocked down some big-time shots. Ben Burnham hit 1 in the corner. Brandon Rexsteiner knocked down a 3 on the wing. They got some shots from outside the arc, but it was that inside presence that really brought them over. And I was surprised Tech didn't really go to it earlier. It wasn't really until Toby Lawal, he sat out for a couple minutes and he came back in the game, and then he had a couple freak athletic plays where he had a great pass from Brandon Rexsteiner, a little wraparound pass similar to the one I was just talking about with Hammond at Miami, against Miami. He had one to Lawal at the very end of a shot clock, and he got it down. And then the very next possession, Tech took the lead off of an offensive rebound from Lawal. And Tech, I believe, out-rebounded Notre Dame by 2 and had 6 in the second half and had 16 offensive rebounds for the game. So doing a lot of the little things right, and it didn't exactly show up until the end of the game. But Tech did everything needed to win, and you've won 3 of your last 4. Virginia Tech beats Virginia in Castle Coliseum on Saturday. It'll be 7-7 in the ACC with 6 games to go. This team is playing much, much better basketball, and guess what? All 3 of those wins have come on the road.
Yep.
Tech is one of those weird teams. I think I read on our boards that they have a winning record on opposing teams' home courts. They have a winning record in Castle Coliseum, but they have a losing record overall because they didn't win any of those neutral site games.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3 road wins in a row. Last year, they were 2-13 on the road?
The last 2 years combined, Virginia Tech won 4 total games on the road. Tech has 4 as many this year. 3 in the last week or 2
and
weeks.
they've still got Miami and Boston College as road games, which are
Yeah.
winnable. Not to suggest that they're definitely going to win those games or anything like that, but if they can win one of those 2 games, I think you can look at this team and say, yeah, they did a really good job on the road this year.
You know what's funny is I think we were just chatting with some of the players and coaches after some of these road wins. Ask Mike Young, like, why are you guys so good on the road this year? And genuinely, he's like, I don't know, but he's mentioned once or twice, I think that the players just don't know any better. A lot of these guys are so young that they don't view it as home and road games. They just come out and play. And you can't question their toughness and how hard they've played this year. I genuinely think he's got a point. Like they go out in road venues, and with the exception of a couple, the only road game they didn't really play well at all was Duke, but it's Duke, right? I guess St. Joe's, if you want to count that, at the Palestra back in December. But overall, like they've come out and they've been pretty unfazed. And I think now you're seeing them get back to the winning ways. And I think this is big for a young team, a team that has an opportunity, as we've talked about before, to return a very young core, being able to find success winning in different ways, blowing out some teams, or playing really, really well against, you're shooting the lights out against a team like Florida State, where you're really good on both ends, holding off UVA at the wire, coming back to beat Notre Dame. That's just within the last 2 weeks. Tech is 5-0 in games decided by 3 points or fewer this year. Mm-hmm. That one possession game stat.
Hey, that layup at the buzzer was crucial that Notre Dame hit. The layup at the buzzer? Yeah, they hit that layup at the buzzer.
To cut it to a one possession game.
Oh, that's right.
It was a layup at the, yeah. But I think in a lot of ways you're seeing this team continue to get better. And that's a positive sign for things to come.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Also, the thing too on Saturday, and this is going to be my last point about the Notre Dame game before we talk about what's to come and kind of the program as a whole, because that's what everybody wants to talk about right now, is Brandon Rechsteiner was phenomenal down the stretch, I thought, for Virginia Tech. Ben Hammond picked up his fourth foul with over 17 minutes left to go, and I don't think he came back in the game.
He didn't.
So you could argue that was Rechsteiner's best stretch of the season, and he knocked down some crucial free throws down the stretch as well.
Mike said after the game, he was like, Brandon Rechsteiner was our MVP today. I think he had one turnover, and it wasn't always clean and crisp necessarily, but I thought as the game wore on, he got much more comfortable. He looked comfortable. He took maybe one or two more shots than some fans would like, but at the same time, they were open. And Tech as a whole didn't knock down many threes, but he hit a big one. And I thought the way he ran the offense, he wasn't really fazed by pressure. He kind of got Tech into the right spots. And more than anything, he was really good defensively. Marcus Burton, he got like a cut above his eye around the 13-minute mark, I think, and sat out, or maybe it was a little bit before that, and came back. He sat out like 3 or 4 minutes. But Rechsteiner did a really good job on Burton and not letting him get anything in the second half. I mean, 3 of 11. This is a guy who is one of the best guards in the ACC. At the same time, Braden Shrewsbury, Micah Shrewsbury's son, the head coach, he's that team's second best scorer. Virginia Tech did not let him score at all on Saturday. He was 0 of 8. The guards did a really good job defensively, and I thought it started with Rechsteiner in the second half, and that could have been something where it slips away a little bit because Ben Hammond's not on the floor. That was not the case. If anything, Tech was better. And I think you're seeing both of those guys, Hammond and Rechsteiner, they are improving. They are not great, but they are both improving and getting better on both ends.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the more basketball you watch at Virginia Tech, I read your story, Chris, and we're going to get to that later in the podcast as well, but you watch every single game on TV, and I think people are starting to recognize how good Toby Lawal is, because every single broadcast intro, it's, let's look at Toby Lawal from Virginia Tech. So I think it's more than just the athleticism, to your point. Yeah. And again, if you can retain him going forward, you have a really nice piece here in Blacksburg, I should say.
He's the new Bucky Hodges, because it's the same story every week from the announcers, right? He's got a 49.5-inch vertical jump. He's from London, and he grew up a Manchester United fan. That's the story every week. These basketball games are so repetitive, but I think what he's done this year is expanding his game from a skill standpoint has been very impressive. Before he came here, he was mostly just a jumper, and he had only attempted 7 3-pointers in his career before he came to Virginia Tech. And then this year he is, I believe, 18 of 50. Or 19 of 50, I forget the exact number. And he's 0 for his last 7. He's actually 0 for in his last 2 games. I mean, he wasn't going to shoot 50% in ACC play for the season. It was going to come back down to earth. But he has improved that part of his game tremendously. He can take people off the dribble at times. He's gotten more post moves than I thought he would. He's a little bit stronger than I thought he was. And I think he's Virginia Tech's best player in terms of current ability. and he's also their best player in terms of potential ability. He's still raw. He can still get better. If he can improve his passing to just an average level, I think you're really talking about a guy who can do a lot of things for the Hokies next season.
Sure.
So, and he's just the latest in a long line of bigs at Virginia Tech who have developed so much under Mike Young and his staff. Keve Aluma was a 6.5 rebound a game guy, and then came to Virginia Tech and really developed. You go up and down the list. Lynn Kidd developed a back to the basket game. Elijah Petit's a much better offensive player than he was when he enrolled. So I think this staff has just been really good at getting the most they could out of their big men and developing those guys significantly.
I think a lot of that is Ace Custis. And the big thing about Kevin Luma that nobody talks about is he sat out a year. And that Mike
always be redshirting.
Yes, very true.
Well, he had to because of the
it
was the portal rules,
amazing,
but he did.
Amazing you're forced into doing things sometimes and it's for your own benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point.
But yeah, I think Toby is really coming along. He's a pretty smart player. I think sometimes he just is out of it. Like you can tell. And I thought, honestly, on Saturday against Notre Dame, he was out of it for the first half. And then I think you saw a light flick. Like a light bulb came on for him in the second half. And he came back in and he was aggressive. He rebounds like nobody's business. I mean, some of the rebounds he hauls in, it's like how in the world nobody else can get up there to get those. The balance he comes down with, and he made a bunch of crucial plays, and not just against Notre Dame, but even going back to last week against Virginia. Like he had, that we talked about last week, that spin move out of a double team layup and one against UVA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like he can make plays now. If he can stay around and get another year of development with this coaching staff, he's going to be a problem for people in the ACC, even more of a problem next year.
No doubt. I remember sitting down and talking on air with Mike Young at ACC Tip-Off, and he mentioned that Toby Lawau was the first player he's ever coached, and I mentioned it on our preseason podcast, that he had to convince him to wear a mouth guard because he was scared he was going to hit his face on the rim.
That's hilarious. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But
it's aged well.
It's a Mike Youngism for sure.
No doubt.
Toby Lawau, he's brought a different element. And it's not just Toby Lawau, it's Tyler Johnson too. And Petit's been pretty good at this so far this year. But let's look at Mike Young's offensive rebounding teams at Virginia Tech by far. Then this is where they rank an offensive rebound rate. You don't want to look at pure offensive rebounds because each team plays a different number of possessions and takes a different number of shots. You want to look at offensive rebound percentage. So Mike Young's first season, number 340 in the country. His second season, number 171. Third season, number 177. Fourth season, number 260. Fifth season, so last season, number 298. This year, number 79 in the country out of like 360 teams. And the personnel has improved so much. People always wondered why didn't the Hokies crash more? Because they didn't have the personnel to do it. They didn't have any good natural offensive rebounders. So the more you crash, the more you give up in transition. If you don't get that offensive rebound, it's like high pressing. On a high line in soccer, right? It sounds great to do it, but if your defenders are slow, then you're just going to get beat over the top, and that's why Virginia Tech hasn't crashed as much offensively, is because they don't have good natural offensive rebounders, and so they're more likely to get beat in transition than they are to get the offensive
Without
rebound.
a doubt.
So, but now that he's got a couple of really good natural offensive rebounders, that he's using that, and they're crashing more, and it's helped them win a couple of games, I think.
Yeah, I think, like, if you think back to the 2022 ACC championship team, that was like none of those guys. I mean, they were okay rebounders, like Kevin Lumen, Justin Mutz, and David Gasson. Those guys were like all right rebounders, but that wasn't their strength.
Tyrese Bradford has been Virginia Tech's best offensive rebounder until this year.
Yeah, in the Mike Young era.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's funny, because like Mike Young's teams, like peaking with that team, the 2022 team, they were so good defensively. Hunter Couture and Naheem Aline and Storm Murphy, those guys were good defensively with Justin Mutz and Keve Aluma behind them, that they didn't, and they were good offensively too, that they would get good offensive looks. They didn't need to crash. Right. They would get back and play good defense. This is a team where you have to maximize every offensive opportunity you can get. And you're seeing that. Tyler Johnson, he gets some manly rebounds where he comes down with the ball, a guy tries to rip it away, and he rips it away from them. You mentioned Poteet. I think Poteet's gotten a bunch of pretty good ones too.
Ben Burnham too. You could throw him in there.
This is a team that just really fights for them. That's not something you see every day.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You guys were, and Chris, you were really alluding to this, and I really want to hammer this home. And I wrote everything down, but so as of today, so Virginia Tech is 6-7 in the ACC. If the regular season were to end today, they would be the 8th seed in the ACC tournament.
Out of 18 teams? Is that right?
Correct, and then 15 in the tournament, which is crazy.
Yep. And remember the start to the season they had, and some people on our boards were like, we're not going to win any ACC games. And I'm like, calm down. The ACC stinks. We're going to win some ACC games. And they have, and the team has improved. And and we know Mike Young's offensive system is difficult. There's primary looks, secondary looks, tertiary looks. When you've got a bunch of guys new to the system and new to playing with each other, it's tough sometimes to get off those, to progress past those primary looks, and even tougher to progress to your tertiary looks. But I think we're seeing them grasp some of that a little better now than they were earlier in the season, which is to be expected.
Tech would be seated higher than Pitt right now in the ACC tournament.
That's a game I wish Tech could play over again, because they outplayed Pitt in that game, and then just had 3 turnovers like in the last minute and a half, 2 minutes.
Yeah, you're up.
There's a chance Tech could play Pitt in that first game. That 8-9 game. I think it's Florida State right now, but yeah, I mean, this is like first round bye in the ACC tournament in a year that who do you think the last maybe that's something I look up. The last ACC tournament team to receive a bye that finished with a sub overall 500 record.
That's crazy.
Oh, probably. Yeah. You're saying ever? Like, has it ever happened in the ACC?
Yeah. Who was
probably
the last?
Not.
I don't think it's. I doubt it's ever happened.
Yeah. Exactly. I mean, think about that. Like, and if they beat UVA on Saturday, again they'll be 500 in the league. They'll be slightly one game below 500 overall, but. I mean, what they've been able to do in the league, yes, taking advantage of a not very good ACC, but you're seeing that progression that Chris is talking about. I thought the UVA game was really big for that. Like they're just learning how to play together. They're learning where guys are supposed to be on the court. That's basketball, and teams get better as they go along. Completely different from where this team was in November and December.
So again, you got Virginia at home, at Boston College, at Miami. Virginia Tech is probably going to be favored in all 3 of those games. Let's say somehow they do win all 3 of those games, which is possible.
Insane.
They will be, and if you think that's insane, listen to this. Virginia Tech will have won 6 of 7. They'll have won 5 straight road games, and they'll be 9-7 in the ACC.
That would be coach of the year territory.
Yeah.
9-7. No, you're good.
Look,
you're good. You're good.
If the season ended today, if the season ended right now, Mike Young might finish like 3rd in ACC Coach of the Year.
I agree. We've talked about this too.
Right. So you've got Duke, obviously, and probably Louisville. But other than those 2 schools, have you seen any team Duke didn't overachieve. Generally, if the team picked to win the league wins it, that guy's not going to win Coach of the Year, right?
Yeah.
So Young might actually finish like 2nd.
You could argue the Stanford coach.
And depending on how Clemson and Brad Brownell finish.
Yeah, it's true.
I mean,
that's true.
They only have 2 losses right now, I think, in the league. So, yeah, I mean, I think it'd be Clemson, or I'd probably go Brownell or Kelsey right now. But Mike Young's right there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive what he's doing. And that's the thing. If they could get on a roll here because the league's not very good. And they're playing better basketball than most teams right now.
And Miami won last night.
Yeah, they beat Syracuse.
So what are the chances they're going to win 2 in a row?
They have won two. They have won two in a row.
What are the chances
they win?
But do they play this weekend? They might lose this weekend, and then Tech plays them.
Miami?
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Anyway.
Again, yeah.
But Syracuse is another team Tech has too.
Sure.
Comes to
It's
to
certainly a
Castle.
very beatable team.
Yeah.
No doubt about
Or
it.
Gio.
Yeah. Yeah, Syracuse mentioned. Go Orange. No. So you look at Virginia Tech, and again, you were talking about Mike Young and this coaching staff getting the best out of this group. There's no arguing that whatsoever if you're 9-7 in the ACC, in my opinion. And on top of that, too, like with the way this schedule kind of plays out the rest of the way, first off, with what I just read off, pretty much every other year in the history of the ACC, that would get you in the NCAA tournament right there. Like if you go on a stretch like that, you're probably going to the NCAA tournament. Not this year necessarily, but again, it feels like this group has gotten the most out of this group. And on top of that, too, with you still having Louisville at home, which will be tough. But again, Virginia Tech played a nice game against SMU. I don't know how good you feel about your chances going down to Clemson, but you have a lot of winnable games left. And 10-10, maybe 11-9 in the ACC could be on the table, which again gets Mike Young probably in the ACC Coach of the Year conversation.
I think they've won 6 games now, and I think if you polled our message board in late November, early December, I bet hardly anyone. I bet fewer than 5% of responders would have said this team would win 6 ACC games, and they've won 6 now. I think in terms of what we expected before the season, any wins after this is probably more of a bonus.
Absolutely.
And my goal the whole year has been to get to the end of the season and feel like the team progressed and then be in a position to keep your core intact. And I'm a belief that I think they'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
I think I've heard some behind the scenes stuff that some of the big donors aren't happy with the direction of basketball, what happened to last year's roster and why it happened. And I think that combined with revenue sharing is going to put the Hokies in a better position as far as player retention and player recruitment in the future. So I want to get to the end of the season, feel good about the development of Tech's key players, and then be able to retain them. And right now, I think they're on pace for that.
Yeah, I think you're seeing good development from a lot of these guys. Like I thought Saturday was big for Rexsteiner's growth and development. Maybe even a little bit for Hammond too, having to sit there and not be able to play. Like you learn something every time you go out there on the floor, even if you're sitting there and watching from the sidelines, taking in stuff. I think it's a bummer that Ben Burnham doesn't have another year because he's, I think, a really, really good fit. And I think he's one of the guys who's kind of been kind of a glue guy for this team. Mm-hmm. He kind of seems to connect everybody, and he's always in the right spots. And this is a guy who came from College of Charleston, where he played for Pat Kelsey. They run different stuff, and that's the era you're in the transfer portal, where guys are coming in and you have to reteach everything, and you have to kind of take what they know and re-explain it a different way. And I think you're finally seeing a guy like Ben Burnham hit his stride. It's a bummer that he was on an NCAA tournament team at College of Charleston. It's a bummer that this is not an NCAA tournament team, but I think he has been key as a veteran on this team to kind of help some of those younger guys along. I think Tyler Johnson's going to be a terrific player, and he might be one of the best rebounders Virginia Tech men's basketball has had in a really long time,
especially from the small forward position.
He's only 6'5" or 6'6".
Yeah.
He's a kind of an undersized guy. So there's a lot to like. How do you close out the season? If you close out the season on a high note, and you're sitting here saying, hey, imagine Virginia Tech goes into the transfer portal, looking for guys to fill out its roster, and it goes, hey, we just went 10-10 in the ACC this year, right? We got a lot of pretty good players coming back, and we're trying to take that to the next level, and we believe we can really compete and be one of the best teams in the league next year because we showed we could be really good this year. Right, I think that is appealing to a lot of guys. So I think finishing out the year strong is obviously pretty important, and I think they've got the schedule there to make it possible.
Yeah, No doubt. Virginia at Boston College, at Miami, Louisville, Syracuse, North Carolina at Clemson. Yeah, you could see 10 wins in the ACC. No doubt. No doubt. I want to stick on the roster conversation real fast to wrap up the men's side of things. Chris, you kind of alluded to this in your story, and obviously I don't want to get too much into it because I don't want to spoil your story as a whole, but you do have a nice group theoretically coming back with Tyler Johnson, Toby Lawal, Ben Hammond, Rodney Brown, Jaden Shute, etc. What about Ryan Jones? What do we think about Ryan Jones, and kind of how does he fit into the future
We
here at
know he's
Virginia
probably the highest ranked center Virginia Tech has signed, and he's played in like 3 games, maybe 2, which I know is surprising to people. And I don't know the issue there. The little bit he got in there, I thought he played really hard. I do think he's skilled. I also think it takes, well, I know it takes big men longer to develop. Cooper Flagg is not. It's not
He's
the
an
norm,
exception,
right? We've seen time and time again with big men at Virginia Tech. It's later in their careers where they come on. They're not quite as advanced as guards. Has he been dealing with some sort of an injury? I know some people sit behind the bench and they're like, well, he's been kind of limping. And people used to say that about Kerry Blackshear. That's just how Kerry Blackshear walked. Right, he looked like he just didn't put his heel on the ground, so it looked like he was limping. There was nothing wrong with him. So I don't know if there's anything wrong with him now. I really have no idea. That's a better question for Mike Young, but that's the decision. You break your players down into tiers and you prioritize them with your budget. How much money do you have to pay them? And like Lawal's number 1. Without question, right? And then Shute and Tyler Johnson are probably your second tier. Where does Ryan Jones come on that list? I don't know. That's up to Mike Young. I mean, is the fact that he isn't playing because he's not as good as his ranking, or has he been injured, or what? That's up for Mike Young to decide. They've got another 4-star center coming in next year, but Ryan Jones was a 4-star center. You can't just say, oh, because they got a 4-star center coming in, they're going to be fine, right? That's not how it works. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that center position in the offseason.
We have not talked, Mike Young has not talked about Ryan Jones probably since December. And I think the question then was, hey, we haven't really seen him play. Do you expect him to come along? And Mike didn't indicate. I'm trying to remember. I don't think he said there was an injury. He was injured, but he did mention that he wasn't moving very well, Ryan Jones, and that in the way they play, especially on the defensive end, you have to be able to move well, and that was something they were. I mean, he praised his work ethic and how hard he was working, but it was something where, I think reason he's probably not playing is, Mike just doesn't see, like, he didn't fit how Virginia Tech wants to play. I think right now, at least, I think if you put him out there, he'd probably be a little bit of a liability, if that makes sense. Just his inexperience, and he probably doesn't, like Mike Young says, he doesn't move as well if he wants. Well, imagine him trying to, hedge ACC ball screens.
Well,
right?
see, Wessler can't move either. And I mean, let's be honest.
It is a very good point. Yeah,
like
good point.
They haven't played him very much at all recently. Like, they've preferred to play Lawal more at the 5 because it's given him more mobility. So I don't know. I don't know if we'll know the real story. If he's back on the team next year, then I'm sure Mike Young will talk about it and everything in the preseason and things like that. But it's just another example of, like, you don't pay too much attention to these high school rankings.
The 2 kids that were below him in the rankings were Tyler Johnson and Ben Hammond.
Exactly.
I mean, Tech picked up Ben Hammond in May or June, and picked up Tyler Johnson. He was just a normal 3-star guy.
Yep. They're starting.
The only other ACC team I think that wanted him was Clemson.
Mm-hmm.
So, and here he is starting. Here Hammond is starting.
Yeah, no doubt. Real fast, David, what are you looking for Saturday when Virginia comes to town at 2 o'clock on the CW and what should be a pretty good atmosphere at Castle Coliseum? Tom Brenneman on the call. Yep.
The
Nice nugget.
The Cavaliers they've been pretty good lately. Better.
Ever since Tech beat them, they've played better.
Yeah, I mean, they've won 3 of the last 4. The one game they didn't win was the one Tech beat them. I thought it was very impressive the way they lost to Virginia Tech on that buzzer beater on a Saturday, and then they come back on Big Monday and they go on the road and beat Pitt by like 16. And then they beat Georgia Tech at home. They're playing better. Andrew Rohde is really, really coming on. He's not a true point guard, but he's playing point guard for them. And he's got I think he's had back-to-back 9-assist games. He's playing much better. Their offense is playing much better. What I will say is Virginia Tech, I thought, played it really, really well last time in terms of defensive scout and how to match up with stuff. I thought Ben Hammond did a really good job on Isaac McNeely. And if Virginia Tech comes out and plays defense like that again, and it might take some UVA getting a little bit of foul trouble down low, which happened in the first half of that game, Tech can win this game and should win this game. But Tech has to do what it did last time, which is attack the basket. Don't settle. Make UVA's defense move. And that's where the primary and secondary and tertiary reads quote came from, talking about that UVA game, because they had a couple skip passes in the corner. You can take advantage of UVA's defense if you move the ball the right way. You saw the Hokies do it the first time. If they do it on Saturday, they should win.
As always, Tech Sideline is presented by First Bank and Trust Company. The Tech Sideline podcast is also brought to you by the Robertson & Cox Real Estate Team. Looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate? We've got your back. Centrally located in Radford, Virginia, the R&C team is proudly and professionally serving the New River Valley, I should say, Roanoke, and Southwest Virginia. With over 35 combined years of experience, we have all the knowledge needed to help you reach your real estate goals and have the best possible experience. Contact us today for all of your real estate needs. Visit rnc.com to learn more. All right, flipping to the women's side of things, because this has been, obviously, again, a fun team to follow all year long. Virginia Tech coming off of a dominant 87-62 win in Charlottesville against Virginia on Sunday. And what was the most impressive thing to me was how they responded from that Syracuse loss, especially considering Rose Mishaw did not play. Very nice win for Virginia Tech.
That's all Megan Duffy and the team talked about after the win. They didn't say they were embarrassed, but they said they were not happy with the way they played on Thursday against a not very good Syracuse team. That was the 4th, I think, highest shooting percentage by an opponent in Castle Coliseum history. Oof. You're talking about 60.3%.
And it's a quad 4 team too. It's not like old school Gino Auriemma UConn coming in here, right? It's Syracuse. Yes. Sorry, Gio. They haven't been very good this year.
Yeah, no. This is not a very good Syracuse team, and Virginia Tech kind of just let Syracuse do whatever it wanted. And I thought the way what Carter kind of alluded to, talking to Megan Duffy and Matilda Eck and Karis Baker after the game, they were so happy about the way they bounced back, because they got in the film room and they figured out, this is what we did not do well against Syracuse. And added motivation, considering they lost to UVA and did not play very well for a quarter. And that was the difference in the game a couple weeks ago. And I thought all that together made a really, really, really good Virginia Tech team on Sunday in Charlottesville. First time Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball have ever swept UVA in Charlottesville in the same year.
How about that?
And they did it within 8 days of each other. But the women just came out and dominated from the get-go. And I thought defensively, after allowing 60% on Thursday, they come out and just they were on point defensively against UVA. They took Latasha Latimore out of the game, and Kamora Johnson, UVA's best player, the guard, she picked up 2 fouls in the first 3.5 minutes, and that kind of, little lucky on Tech's part, but that kind of set the tone for the rest of the game.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that Syracuse loss, to your point, Chris, that was the one you kind of needed to avoid, especially it being a quad 4 game at home. And again, you alluded to it, David, like Megan Duffy watching that press conference was not thrilled with the defense at all. You give up 93 points at home to an opponent like that, with all due respect to Syracuse this year, not ideal. But to go on the road and pick up a victory like that is huge. Mention Rose Mishaw. Do we know anything on her and when we could expect her to be back in the lineup here pretty soon?
Megan Duffy said after the UVA game that they I forget what the exact quote was. Essentially alluded to they hoped to have her back quickly.
I got you tweeted it out, right?
Pretty soon. Yeah. But she said Rose is still day to day. She didn't really specify anything else. And to me, that was maybe the most impressive thing about the UVA win, is that the last time the Hokies played the Cavaliers in Castle Coliseum, Latasha Lattimore went off for 24 and 15. And they had Rose Mishaw. And this time around, they don't have Rose Mishaw, and they played better defense. I thought Kale Peterson was really good. I thought Ramiah White was very good. I thought as a team, they really swarmed Lattimore and made her just have a very, very tough afternoon. And that's what you have to do. I thought Tech overall in that first meeting with UVA was okay. Did some things well, but came out and got walloped in that second half, at the start of the second half in that third quarter. And they also did not handle the pressure well. And I thought this time around, yes, the Hokies turned the ball over a little bit against the press in that second half when they were already up 15-20. But overall, you could not write a better script for that game if you're Virginia Tech.
No.
Yeah, I think it was a good coaching job whenever you come off a big disappointment like that to completely flip the script, going from one of the worst defensive performances, not just for this team, but like in program history, really, when you think about it. When you can follow that up just 3 days later with one of your best, probably your best defensive performance of the year, all told, on the road, I think that's a good indication that she's able to get players to refocus and adjust in a quick period of time. And I think that's big. The unfortunate part is the Syracuse loss basically cancels out the Georgia Tech win. So remember, we always talked about being +1 or whatever.
They're probably even now.
Yeah, probably even now. I think this week was sort of you just saw results canceling each other out. So the Syracuse game canceled out the Georgia Tech game, and the UVA game canceled out the UVA game, basically. Yeah. So I think to really cement their resume that it would be great if they could get a win against UNC. That's going to be easier said than done. But regardless of whether they make the NCAA tournament or not, I think if you told me before the season that they're probably going to end up winning 20 games with a new head coach and with the two best players in school history gone, and with everybody and only going into the portal for one player, and who's more of a role player and not like an impact player, and then everybody learning a new system, I would have taken that. I think that's I think what's happened so far this year, assuming that they get to at or around 20 wins, I think it's a good reflection on Megan Duffy as a coach.
Yeah, Charlie Cream still has Virginia Tech as his last team in. So, to your point, Chris, I agree.
So how many quad one wins do they have? One.
Georgia Tech. There you go.
Georgia
yeah,
Tech.
Georgia Tech.
Right. So
and
they can't get to Selection Sunday and say, "Oh, we've only got one quad one win." And
where's
being at
the other
team.
tough part is Louisville is, I think, the only quadrant 2 win.
Right.
Now, every other game the rest of the way is either a quadrant 1 or quadrant 2 game. Every single one of them. Carolina's the only quadrant 1 game, but Cal and Stanford coming here are quadrant 2.
And Cal could potentially get into it. Yeah,
probably not likely.
Right.
But especially if Virginia Tech beats them. But
hey, maybe Tech should lose to them, and that would get Cal into the top 30, which would count that earlier win as a quad 1 win.
Science. Throw the game.
Yeah.
No, of course not. But
I know a point guard.
What's that?
I know a point guard that.
Can we? Have you all ever seen the movie Joanna Man? So maybe
No.
we could
No.
put. I'll tell you about it after the
Nick
podcast.
said he knows a point guard
maybe
who
we could.
throws
Nick
games.
has,
Yeah.
maybe we could put Hyser Miller in the women's game.
That was a little dig
to toss it.
at the situation. So I agree though, Chris. I think, we talked about on the podcast last week that actually David mentioned it. The UVA game in Charlottesville kind of felt like the biggest game of the year to this point, and that was before Tech lost to Syracuse, because it could cancel out that UVA game at home. And you touched on that. But now after losing to Syracuse, it does feel like to get on the right side of the bubble, you do need to get one of those big wins. And the only one, granted, to your point, David, there are some games that, could benefit you. I do think you got to win at Carolina tomorrow. I think you got to win at Carolina to feel okay about your chances, unless you go on a run in Greensboro. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I think you got to win that game at Carolina.
I think it's tough. Obviously, part of it also depends on what everybody else in the country is doing. People in the same position. You got 5 games left. I mean, if Tech goes 4-1, 5 games left, right?
Yeah, at Carolina, Stanford, Cal.
Stanford, Cal, and BC Clemson. Yeah, I mean, if Tech loses tomorrow on Thursday, but wins the last 4, right? You're talking about a team that's 20 wins. I think it's the Carolina game would certainly help, because that would be a statement win. And the tough part is Carolina is a really, really good team, very good defensively. That's going to be a very difficult challenge for the Hokies. But I like their chances in the other 4 games. If they could go 4-0, again, easier said than done, to end the year, where they beat Stanford at home, and then they beat Cal on senior day, and then they turn around and go up to Boston College, where they're playing on an ice rink, and then they go to Clemson to close out the year. I mean, those are 4 games where they can win if they come in with the right mindset and mentality and play it the right way. Carolina, I think, would be a good bonus, and I think it would kind of swing things in their favor. But at the same time, I could also see it kind of like some of those old Seth Greenberg teams, where they beat Carolina and then end the season on a downward trajectory and lose some of those games. Even though they have a statement win, they don't get in the tournament. So ideally, they just win everything. But we know that doesn't happen.
Just don't lose again, and you'll make the NCAA tournament.
I don't.
It's pretty
That's a
simple.
good point. That's a good point.
I don't know. Like I said before, I think they're probably going to get a bye in the ACC tournament, so you're going to play a pretty good team. And if you can get that one too, so there are different elements here. They really have 6 games. If you think about it, they have 6 games left, because they'll have an ACC tournament game. So they got 6 games left to kind of make their case. And if they win in the ACC tournament, okay, well, that's an extra game. But how do you finish here? I mean, if they win 4 games, you're talking about potentially 20 wins, but you have 1 or 2 quality wins, right? Except for you might have a couple, if they beat Cal and Stanford and BC and Clemson, those would all be Q2 wins, right? So maybe you feel a little bit better about the resume, but I don't know that you want to be sitting there on the bubble, especially if you're that last team in before conference tournament play starts, and then there might be some bid stealers,
right?
And then all of a sudden you might be looking at yourself as, hey, we're the last team first team out.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, you need to give yourself some breathing room going into the conference tournament.
Carolina is 21-4, 9-3 in the ACC, and they have some big wins. They won at Cal. They beat our friends. They beat Kentucky at home in Chapel Hill. It was actually not a close game at all. It was 72-53. Although Kentucky's had a really good year, so I give them a lot of credit. They won at SMU. SMU's not very good, but they also, I'm just kind of scrolling through it right now.
Their losses are to UConn, Georgia Tech, Florida State, and Notre Dame.
They did beat Duke
in
Chapel
overtime. Now Carolina ends the year with Duke and State and Louisville. That is a tough trajectory. Just a tough way to close out the year. I've been impressed by this Carolina team. Like, Tar Heels have kind of just flown under the radar. They are very, very experienced. Only one of their starters is not a junior or older, and that's Renaya Kelly, and she's played pretty well. Alyssa Usby is back. Maria Gakdang is back. Some of these names Virginia Tech fans will remember. They've got a freshman coming off the bench. She's from Midlothian. She went to James River High School. I forget her name, but she comes off the bench and she's playing really, really. Lainey Grant is her name. She's coming off the bench and she's playing really, really well for them. This is a very, very talented Carolina team that really its only struggle is free throw shooting. It rebounds the basketball well. It shoots well. It defends well. It doesn't really turn the ball over. It forces turnovers. It's not necessarily great at everything, but it's like good at everything. This is the ultimate challenge for the Hokies. I'm very excited to see how they handle it, because they probably could use Rose Misha. Maria Gakdang and Alyssa Usby are very, very good. Tech's going to have to crash the boards. Carolina was plus 17 on the glass last time out. You got to make shots. It's one of those things where you've got to do a bunch of things right to win on the road and beat a top 15 team.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Virginia Tech, North Carolina. That is at 7 o'clock tomorrow, Carmichael Arena in Chapel Hill. That is on the ACC Network Extra, by the way. So not televised. It'll be on the app. So ACC Network Extra from down in Carmichael. Hokies and Tar Heels have played some classics over there over the last couple of years.
I believe Tech has won like 11 or 12 of the last 15 in the series against Carolina. But just think about that for a second. I know how much you despise Carolina. Virginia Tech has won 11 of the last 15. I know more so football, but like that is Tech. Virginia Tech had Carolina's number for the longest time.
Carolina, what a mess. I mean, have y'all paid? This doesn't have anything to do with women's basketball. Have you paid attention to what's been going on?
Yes, I was going to bring this up to you actually off air. Did you see what Michael Lombardi said yesterday?
No, what did he say?
North Carolina is operating as the 33rd team.
NFL team.
They're operating as the 33rd team. I'm like, what? What are we doing here?
Sure you are. I'm sure if you're the 33rd NFL team, you're going to go 12-0 this year, and we know that's not going to happen. Basically, their board went behind the athletic director's back to hire Belichick, is what it seems like. And so the overall, there's a chancellor of UNC, but then there's an overall president of the entire UNC system, UNC Chapel Hill,
and
UNC Wilmington, all that.
Happy.
And they've basically gone. That guy has basically taken away a lot of the rights of the UNC board right now, because they did that, and what they did probably wasn't like he could get them in a lot of trouble somehow. I don't understand the legal ramifications of it, but basically Bubba Cunningham kind of put on a smiling face throughout that entire process, but he didn't make that hire is what it sounds like, and certainly didn't set that $10 million a year salary, which is asinine. And the buyout drops to like $1 million in July or something like that. That's ridiculous. So I wouldn't shock me if Bubba Cunningham was on his way out. Like, how are you supposed to do your job when you're on board is going behind your back and hiring coaches and things like that? But I don't know. And
you might have to hire a basketball coach soon too.
Yeah. And that's the other thing, Hubert, like Courtney Banghart is doing very well this year. This is, I think, probably her best team. They're, again, Carter said they're 21-4, and I think on the men's side, it's funny how Hubert Davis they're on again, off again, on again, off again. This is his fourth season, and he'll probably miss the NCAA tournament for the second time, and so he'll have 2 NCAA tournament appearances to 2 misses. It's like, that doesn't fly in Chapel Hill.
No.
There's something about, they got to have a UNC guy for basketball, right? Well, it's great when Roy Williams is he's a UNC guy, but if you limit yourself to that, it's going to be hard to be consistent and relevant as a program long term. Yeah. And even as big a program as UNC.
Yeah. The Bill Belichick thing, don't get me wrong, have a lot of respect for him as a football coach, but I just think that's going to totally flop.
I don't think it's going to end well.
Totally flop. And basketball coach-wise, who's out there? Wes Miller at Cincinnati? That's probably it.
Yeah.
Spray it. All right, what is coming up on TechSideline.com? I know a lot going on. Basketball, baseball, softball, MLM, perfect game this weekend. So what's coming up on TSL?
Andy Bitter's got a mailbag that I'm about to go edit, which will be on the site by the time everybody gets around to watching this video. I'll do a normal Friday Q&A. David's got some basketball coverage coming up.
Yeah, basketball coverage and baseball, softball. I think baseball was doing some media day thing today. So Dylan Teft, our new baseball writer, is going to have some stuff on that front. There's supposed to be a series played in Blacksburg this weekend. We'll see if there's a series played in Blacksburg this weekend. And softball is going down to Baton Rouge, I believe. It's a couple big challenges for them. Sam Mostow and Chip Grubb will have us covered on that front. So lots of good stuff going on, and interested to see. It's a weird week where the men are off during the week and they play Saturday, and the women play Thursday and then are off on Sunday. So they're both off this week, just different days.
Some point, Tech will hire an offensive coordinator.
I forgot about that.
I don't anticipate this lasting 46 days like the defensive coordinator search, but you never know.
Never know.
I don't think that's coming like tomorrow or anything.
No, but we'll see. What about you, Nick?
We've got Jaden Shoot, hopefully this afternoon at 4:30. That'll be posted Thursday. Carter and Kyle will be on the video for that one, so that'll be very good for a Triumph Spotlight making its return. And then Chip Grubb having boots on the ground in Louisiana. Shout out. Big shout out to Chip Grubb. He'll follow his Twitter. Highly entertaining. And I think we need to give him some play-by-play reps. Chip Grubb has proven himself to be actually a pretty good play-by-play guy if you listen to his videos on Twitter. But we'll have plenty of stuff next week, of course. And, stay safe out in the snow.
Yeah, softball down at LSU. Baseball has Bucknell in Blacksburg this weekend, so we'll see what happens. But also, Pizza More podcasts coming up later today, tomorrow, whenever. So we're recording in about an hour and a half. So anyway, all right, Virginia Tech basketball. Virginia this weekend on the men's side on Saturday, and the women go to North Carolina tomorrow on Thursday before an off day on Sunday. So for Chris Coleman, David Cunningham, Nick Brown, I'm Carter Hill. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk to you very soon.